Hello students, welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. My name is Dinesh Ahera and I teach political science in Delhi University. Well, this is the fourth webinar for PSIR, and in this webinar, we're going to proceed with our discussion on global issues and also the contemporary issues. But before we proceed, or before we begin, let me give you some important instructions. So if you want to know about preparation strategy, then you can follow the given steps. Also, you need some assistance regarding answer writing. You want your answer to be evaluated, then you also follow the same procedure. If you want recorded webinars and handout including this webinar, you can also follow the same process. And if you need any mentorship support, then you can call on this number. Now, with this, let us begin our webinar. Well, in this webinar, we are going to discuss some of the important contemporary issues as far as international or global politics is concerned. So we are going to discuss these issues. So first, we are going to discuss India-EU bilateral trade and investment agreement, and various issues and concerns which have prevented India and EU to enter into this agreement. Second, we are going to discuss about recent developments in Afghanistan. Very, very important topic, very relevant, and you can see many questions have been asked in UPSC about India's role in Afghanistan, about what will be the impact of Taliban's takeover on India, so on and so forth. So we are going to discuss this issue comprehensively as well. Then again, very important issue, that is Russia-Ukraine crisis and India's stand from critical lenses, like how far we can justify India's stand, that is neutral stand in Russia-Ukraine crisis. Then we are also going to discuss two important issues of global concerns, and these are terrorism and global justice. So let us discuss first India-EU BTIA, that is broad-based bilateral trade and investment agreement. Now, see, India and Europeans are largest democracies in the world, right? They're the union of democracies. Now, as far as economic and trade cooperation is concerned, both India and EU are attempting various ways, or they're doing various initiatives to increase the bilateral trade between India and EU. Now, in this aspect, both India and EU, they proposed broad-based bilateral trade and investment agreement in 2007. Now, this agreement was proposed as a result, or it was an outcome of India-EU summit, the 7th India-EU summit, which happened in October 2006. In that summit, it was decided that, the trade potential between India and EU is far below the potential which India and EU has, as well as trade and economic cooperation is concerned. And that is why, to increase and expand the bilateral trade between India and EU, the broad-based BTIA, that is bilateral trade and investment agreement, was proposed. The negotiations began in 2007. It was expected that negotiations would conclude by 2 years, like by 2009. This BTIA is supposed to be a very comprehensive agreement. See, any free trade agreement includes agreement in goods, agreement in services, agreement in investment. So in order to have any free trade agreement, or in order to call any free trade agreement very comprehensive or comprehensive economic partnership, then it must cover these three important elements, that is goods, services, and investment. And so this particular BTIA is called as broad-based and inclusive because it is very comprehensive in nature. It is very ambitious agreement, and the negotiations cover trade in goods, trade in services, investment, other non-tariff issues related to non-tariff barriers such as sanitary and phytosanitary measures, TBT, that is technical barriers to trade, trade facilitation, competition, trade defense, government procurement, geographical indications, intellectual property rights, so on and so forth. So as you can see, this proposed agreement is supposed to be a very, very comprehensive. It covers almost all aspects of economic and trade relationship between India and EU. Now, both countries, they are aiming to ensure that BTIA is in consonance with or in harmony with WTO rules as well as principles. And what is the purpose of this BTIA? The purpose of this BTIA is to promote bilateral trade between India and EU. Now, how to promote bilateral trade between any two countries? See, to promote bilateral trade, the first thing is to be done is to remove barriers to trade in both goods, services, as well as investment. Now, there are various barriers to trade, and these barriers are classified into two types. One is tariff barriers or tax-related barriers, or custom duties, export duties, so on and so forth. And there are non-tariff barriers as well, like subsidies, quotas, then environmental and labor standards, so on and so forth. Now, this particular the purpose of this BTIA is to enhance bilateral trade between India and EU by removing all the barriers to trade in both goods, services, and investment, and across all the sectors of economy, including agriculture, including manufacturing, automobile, as well as service sectors. Now, what would be the key benefit of BTIA? See, understand that BTIA is going to be mutually beneficial. The key benefit of BTIA would be opening of new markets to both EU and India. I mean, if the BTIA will be entered into force in future, then it will enhance the trade between India and EU by giving market access to each other's countries, and market access in the sense market access to both goods, services, as well as FDI, so on and so forth. So this BTIA is going to expand the opportunities for both India and EU businesses. Both India and EU companies, both the goods from both India and EU are going to get access to each other's market. That is very, very important. Now, what is the status? See, so far, 15 rounds of negotiations had been held alternatively in Brussels, that is the capital of European Union, and New Delhi. But in 2013, unfortunately, the negotiations between India and EU over BTIA were suspended. So negotiations began in 2007 as a result of 2006 India-EU summit. Then both countries held series of rounds, that is 15 rounds of negotiations. It was expected that the BTIA would be concluded by 2009, but could not adhere to the deadline. The negotiations went on till 2013, but in 2013, both countries reached the deadlock or dead end, and they could not proceed over BTIA due to various differences. However, there is a good news recently. Recently, that is in June 2022, very important. India and EU the India and EU began negotiations on BTIA. So, after a gap of 8 years, India and EU have restarted the suspended negotiations over BTIA. Now, both the countries have realized that the suspension of negotiations on BTIA has not helped either European Union or India, and that is why they have decided now we have to engage with each other. We have to solve our differences. We have to engage into compromises and give and take attitude in order to clinch this BTIA, which is very, very important. So in June 2022, they formally resumed negotiations on BTIA. Now, the first round of negotiation has already been conducted. It was conducted in July 2022, and the second round of negotiation is expected to be held in Brussels in September 2022. So this is the current status of this particular agreement. Now, before we discuss what are the problems because of which BTIA is not been able to come into force? Let us understand the history of economic relationship between India and EU. Now, India and EU relations, they dates back to early 1960s, when India became one of the first countries to establish diplomatic relationship with what is called as what was then the European Economic Community. And this happened in 1962. See, European Union, it evolved over a period of time, and formally it was established in 1993 through Maastricht Treaty. But initially it was, European Iron and Coal Community, then European Economic Community, so on and so forth. So India was one of the first countries which showed interest in engaging with this European Economic Community in 1962 by establishing diplomatic relations. Then both countries issued joint political statement in 1993, which was followed by the cooperation agreement between these two countries in 1994. And this in 1994, what happened is India and EU decided to shift or not just to focus on trade and economic issues, but to cover all the aspects of bilateral relation. So in 1994, they decided that we must start the annual dialogue between leaders of each other's countries, ministerial meetings, so on and so forth. So political engagement it intensified after 1994, and over the years there have been a multilateral institutional architecture for cooperation between India and EU, with the help of India-EU annual summits. So the biggest platform for India and European Union to engage with each other is annual India-EU annual summits. Now, the first summit was held in 2000, and this holding of India-EU annual summit was a watershed development in the relationship of India and EU. Both decided that we need to intensify our engagement, we need to expand our areas of cooperation, so on and so forth. Now, since 2000, there have been a regular and bilateral summits between India and European Union. The last one was held in 2021. Now, India and European Union, they enjoy strategic partnership. Now, the strategic partnership agreement was signed in 2004. Now, whenever India enters into strategic partnership with any country, it means that that particular country is very, very important as far as our foreign policy is concerned. That is the purpose of strategic partnership. And the purpose of strategic partnership is also means that, with that particular country, India wants to engage with political, economic, social, cultural, etc., educational, technological, all aspects of relations are sought to be engaged with that country with which India enjoys strategic partnership. And with EU, it happened in 2004. Then both countries have entered into this very important agreement which involves the roadmap. So, and that is India-EU strategic partnership, a roadmap to 2025. Very important, and it was signed during 15th India-EU summit, which was held in July 2020. Now, in this through this roadmap, both the countries have decided to intensify their engagement further, particularly the trade and economic cooperation, as well as cooperation in security and defense areas, considering the uncertain global order is concerned, considering the increasing assertiveness and expansionism by our neighbor China. So this roadmap is supposed to be a common roadmap which will guide a joint action and further strengthen the India-EU strategic cooperation over the next 5 years. So this document is very, very important. You might get a question regarding this particular roadmap, that what are the salient features of this roadmap, what are the key issues involved, so on and so forth. And one of the issues involved in this roadmap is early conclusion of India-EU BTIA. So we are going to focus only on this. Then what is the importance of India? What is the importance of European Union for India? See, currently European Union is India's second largest trading partner after the United States. Now, this is very, very important. So if European Union is our second largest trading partner, it means that we must have bilateral free trade agreement. Without free trade agreement, our trade potential couldn't be tapped. So currently the trade potential between India and European Union is untapped. Now, along with being India's second largest trading partner, European Union is also India's second largest destination for our exports. To European Union, we export around 20% of our exports. Very important. Then currently in 2021 and 2022, the bilateral trade between India and EU amounted to $116 billion. This figure is very, very important. See, whenever there's question on BTI, you're supposed to write the trade potential, or what is the trade amount between India and EU. So 116 billion US dollar is a huge amount. As far as India is concerned, trade with European Union comprises 11% of India's total trade. So 11% of India's total trade is with European Union. And as far as India for European Union is concerned, trade with India comprises only 3%. 3% of EU's total trade, which is very low, as compared to other countries like China. So European Union and China enjoys much better or intensive economic cooperation, despite China being a communist country, a non-democratic country, whereas both European Union and India being a democracy, still their trade potential is still very low. It is significantly low, and therein lies the potential. Now, despite of COVID disruptions, the global disruptions, the trade between India and European Union in 2021 and 2022, in this year, it saw an impressive annual growth of 43.5%. So the trade between India and European Union has, in fact, grew despite of disruptions in global supply chains due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The another thing about India and European Union economic relation is that European Union is amongst the very few countries with which India enjoys trade surplus, particularly in service sector. In service sector, Europe is India's one of the biggest markets. Europe is very, very important as far as India's IT sector is concerned, the software industry is concerned. So this is the potential, and this is the current status. So I have given you some important facts. Yes, I've already told you that India is the largest exporter of services to European Union. It is the 6th largest destination for service exports from EU, right? So I forgot to tell you about India's rank as far as European Union's trade is concerned. So European Union is India's second largest trade partner, whereas India is European Union's 10th largest trade partner. See, these are the things which you should include in your introduction part, these facts. then EU is very among service. Yes, India is the fourth largest service exporter to European Union, and amongst the services, it is the IT services or IT industry which plays very important role in exporting to European Union. So 30% of our IT exports are to European Union. Very very important for software industry, for software companies, IT enabled services, KPOs, knowledge processing, outsourcing. European Union is very important market. Then along with trade and services, European Union has also been one of the largest source of foreign direct investment in India. See, India need more than $1 trillion investment in our infrastructure sector. In order to provide state-of-the-art infrastructure, we need this more than $1 trillion investment, and this $1 trillion investment cannot come from within India only. We need to mobilize resources through foreign direct investment as well. So around 25% of India's total FDI is from European Union. So now all this fact shows that how important European Union is for India. Now it is not as if European Union is important for India. India is also important for European Union. Yes, the trade between India and European Union, as far as Europe is concerned, it is only trade with India is European Union is only 3% of global trade, but we can expand this 3% to 20% in the next 5 to 7 years. So whenever the potential is low, there is an opportunity to increase that potential, right? So it means that there is no saturation between India and European trade is concerned. Whereas in case of China, European Union has already reached that saturation level. That is the highest trade they have already reached. But in case of India, it is not the case. So herein lies the opportunity. Now, India is important for European Union also because of our increasing middle class, which has purchasing power to purchase European goods, European services, so on and so forth. So this middle class population, increasing middle class population of India is very, very relevant for Europe to export its goods and services. Now, see, whenever international relations in PSIR paper 2 is concerned, what happens is that students tend to write answers in a GS language. Now, this is what is to be avoided. Very, very important. You have to take care about including political science terms, the theoretical terms, whenever you attempt questions of PSIR paper 2. Now, because of the generic language used by students in PSIR paper 2, as far as the dynamic portion is concerned, the current affairs are concerned, students get less marks in PSIR paper 2 as compared to PSIR paper 1. And one of the significant reasons behind low score in paper 2 to toppers as well is the language, the generic language. So here we have to be very careful. We should use the terminology or language of political science. For example, in case of the difficulties as far as FTA negotiations are concerned, you can talk about the absolute gain versus relative gain argument. Greico was the one who differentiated between this absolute gain and relative gains. Now, as far as the potential of economic cooperation is concerned, the realists are very pessimistic, whereas the liberals are very optimistic. Now, why? According to realist scholars, as far as economic cooperation is concerned, or trade or free trade is concerned, the countries they focus on relative gains. Relative gains, as in, suppose if A and B are entering into an economic cooperation or any cooperation for that matter, A will always see what are the benefits it is getting from entering into that cooperative endeavor vis-a-vis B. So A will not only think about whether it is gaining through that economic or any other cooperation with B, it will also seek to ensure that B is not benefiting more than A. So this is the concept of relative gain. Whereas the liberals, they argue that countries do not worry about relative gain. The countries worry about absolute gain. They only worry about what are the benefits that particular country is securing from that cooperative agreement or that cooperation. So, for example, if A and B, they think about absolute gain, then in this example, A will only think about its absolute gain, whether it is gaining from that cooperative endeavor or not. It will not think about how much B is gaining. Right, but whereas according to relative gain, A will not only think about its own benefit, A will also think about how much B is gaining. And if it feels that B is going to gain more than A, it will not enter into that cooperative endeavor, be it free trade agreement or be it any agreement for that matter. So you can say that the problem between India and EU or the lack of negotiation is not because of absolute gain. Yes, we have already seen that both India and EU, they believe and they agree that the free trade agreement, that bilateral trade and investment agreement, the BTIA, is going to be win-win situation. It is not a zero-sum game. It is going to be mutually beneficial for both of them. But the problem lies in relative gains. Both the countries feel that the other countries might gain more as a result of this. So you can bring in this particular concept, the theoretical concept, in writing your answer. Then what are the differences? One by one, let us discuss. So first is European Union demands greater market access as well as higher level of tariff concessions in automobile and wine and spirit. So this is the first demand of European Union. See, European Union is very critical of protectionist, so-called protectionist trade policies of India. It is very critical of very high tariffs or custom duties on European exports, that is automobiles and wine and spirit. Now, you must remember in this context how the Trump administration criticized India as a tariff king, and how Trump gave the example of Harley-Davidson bike, wherein the import duty or custom duty on these high-end bikes, they range from 100% to 200%. As far as India, US is concerned, with European Union, the custom duty on automobiles, the high-end cars from say Germany, they range from 60% to 100%. And this European Union considers really unreasonable, and it is demanding that India must cut the tariffs or custom duties on automobile in European automobile sector, the imported cars from European Union countries. Now, similarly, it also demands cutting off tariffs or custom duties on wines and spirits. Now, you must have observed that the foreign liquor or the imported liquor is really expensive in India. Now, why? What is the reason? The same reason why the European cars are expensive, like Audi or Mercedes or BMW. They all are coming from Germany, and on that, India imposes custom duties which range from 60% to 100%. So this increases the cost of the European automobiles, European cars as imported in India, as well as the wines and spirits. Now, what is the reason India has been putting or keeping this very high tariffs? See, as far as automobile is concerned, Indian manufacturers, the domestic Indian manufacturers like Tatas and Mahindras and Marutis, they fear that if you reduce the tariff on European imported cars, then Indian market would be flooded with European cars. Because they believe that we will not be in a position to compete with imported cars. So that is why they seek protection from this European competition from European car makers through the custom duties. And they also agree that it will not only flood the Indian market with European cars. The outcome of this would be their reduced share in Indian car market, which will put them economically at a disadvantaged position vis-a-vis their European partners or European competitors. So automobile industry, it argues that we are not in a position to compete with European car manufacturers. There is no level playing field between India and European Union's manufacturers of cars. So that is why they want to provide India them a level playing field through custom duties, because custom duties makes the imported cars expensive, and it protects the Indian car manufacturers from unfair competition. What they allege that is an unfair competition. The Indian automobile industry also argue that if you reduce custom duties on imported cars from Europe, then they will not set up. They will have no incentive to set up local manufacturing bases in India. See, currently many European car manufacturers have local manufacturing units in India because of the high custom duties. Now they allege that if you reduce the custom duty, then they will not come to India. They will directly export to India, and that will be an economic loss. Now, what about wine and spirit? Now, before I discuss, see, here therein lies a little problem in the argument given by Indian car manufacturers. See, the here question is, can European car makers compete in Indian small car segment? Small car segment comprises 80% of India's market. See, as far as high-end cars are concerned, yes, the Indian car manufacturers won't be able to compete with the European Union EU competitors. But what about small scale? The majority, the 80% of India's car market is about small cars. And various studies have shown that it will be very difficult for Europe to compete with domestic manufacturers without a strong dealer network as well as reliable after-sales services, right? Which and so in this the dealer network as well as after-sales services, Indian domestic manufacturers are far ahead than their European competitors because they're already functioning in India. But if you allow European Union car makers, it will be very difficult for them to compete with Indian small car manufacturers. So the argument is that yes, we can allow European Union's car exports as well as small car segment is concerned. Let us not be rigid. In negotiations, you have to have a very give and take approach. In any negotiation, you have to compromise. If you do not compromise, if you are rigid, then the negotiations will stall. And that is what has happened in the case of VTIA. But the good thing is that they have agreed to restart the negotiation. Now, what about the custom duties on wines and spirits? Now, you will ask, sir, why India imposes very high custom duties on, say, both automobiles as well as wines and spirit? So the reason is not only to protect the India's domestic manufacturers of car as well as wine and spirit, but the purpose is also have a very strong revenue. See, the custom duties on automobile and wine and spirit have been an important source of revenue for India. So high custom duties not only make sense in terms of protecting our domestic industry, but also in terms of economics. But nevertheless, as far as consumers are concerned, what we need is choices. See, before new economic policy 1991, the mobile it was unimaginable for even rich people to get mobile phone. Mobile phones were very expensive. The call rate was 100 rupees per minute for both incoming as well as outgoing. With the liberalization of Indian economy, the choices, the cost on various goods and services have reduced significantly because of the competition. See, competition reduces cost. Competition increases efficiency. Competition enhances the innovation and enterprising spirit. And competition also enhances range of choices to the consumers. So if the custom duties on wine and spirit and automobile is reduced, along with other benefits, increasing trade, so on and so forth, we will also get more choices in buying cars as well as the foreign made liquor is concerned. Now, EU also says that not the problem lies not only with the custom duties, but also with state level duties as well as additional duties like VAT, so on and so forth. And this additional state level duty further escalates the cost of imported wine and spirit or imported liquor from India. And I've already told you that how the duties on wine and spirit are very important critical source of tax revenue. So this is about automobile and wine and spirit. Now, both countries have differences over the agriculture field or agriculture and animal husbandry. In this field also there are disagreements. So agriculture, dairy, poultry and fisheries. Now, India, see, there is a misperception which has been created by Western countries that India provides very high subsidies to its agriculture sector. But you have to understand that not only India, but all the countries provide agriculture subsidies to their agriculture sector to protect their farmers. For example, European Union's subsidies in cotton on cotton crops are more than what India provides to our cotton growers. Same is the case with European Union. So India wants European Union to cut its agriculture subsidies because agriculture subsidies renders India's agriculture products uncompetitive in European markets because they are going to be expensive as compared to the European subsidized agriculture products, because subsidy reduces the cost of agriculture products. So India wants EU to cut its agriculture subsidies, while European Union wants India to cut import duties or cut tariffs on dairy products, poultry farms, and fisheries. In this field, European Union has interest. So it wants India to give greater market access as far as dairy products, poultry, and fisheries are concerned. They realize that the custom duties on these products are very high. Similarly, India also argues that the custom duties or tariff rates on certain products, certain agri-related products such as dairy, fruits, and vegetables, as well as sugar and confectionery, they are higher more than India. So India wants European Union. So European wants greater market access as far as dairy, poultry, and fisheries concerned. But at the same time, India says that look at your tariff rates. Your tariff rates on certain products which are high. See, on dairy it is 650%. On fruits and vegetables it's 156%. It's very high. Now with these tariff rates, how Indian products are going to compete in European countries? No chance. Then again, like agriculture, certain agriculture products, the fishery as well as the dairy sectors in European Union EU countries are highly subsidized, and that acts as a major obstacle for export of Indian dairy and fishery products. Now, why India alleges? So on one hand, European Union wants India to cut agriculture subsidies. On the other hand, it is shying away from reducing its own subsidies. This is not fair. Now, the Indian agriculture sector is also, like manufacturing sector, is opposing reduction of custom duties on automobiles. Indian agriculture sector of farmers, particularly dairy and poultry farmers, they says that they argue that cutting off the custom duties on fisheries and dairy sectors will flood Indian market with the dairy products and fisheries from European Union, and it will have a devastating impact on domestic poultry and fishery industry. They will have to bear a huge economic losses, and that might lead to unemployment, and that will have an overall economic impact. So in as far as this agriculture, dairy products and fisheries are concerned, both countries have strong defensive interest. And that is why they have stuck with the agreement in this having stuck. See, the point is that what is comprehensive economic partnership agreement? What is broad-based bilateral trade and investment agreement seeks to do? It seeks to reduce or eliminate the tariffs, both tariff and non-tariff barriers on goods, services, and in other fields like investment, IPR, so on and so forth. But in this, how much taxes to reduce, in which sector to reduce, it's a very complicated thing, and that is what is preventing both entering into this agreement. Then second, then this is the third issue. So both India and EU, they have differences over India's IPR regime, intellectual property rights regime. And now EU wants strict IPR regime, which is over and above the WTO IPR regime. Now India argues that this is not fair. India argues that India's IPR, India have made laws, India have amended laws, intellectual property laws, and our IPR laws or IPR regime is inconsistent, is in harmony with WTO's IPR rules, and we won't go beyond the WTO IPR regime. But European Union wants India to have a strict IPR regime to protect its patents, patent holding companies. Now. In one field where European Union wants a strong IPR regime is pharmaceutical. Now, European pharmaceutical companies, they are really critical of India's patent laws because India's patent laws prevent evergreening of patents. Now, what is this evergreening of patents? See, every patent has some time period for which it is valid. It is 20 years, 50 years, 15 years. It differs from country to country. Now, and it differs from product to product as well. But what European Union wants, or European EU pharmaceutical companies wants, is evergreening of patent. Now, what is evergreening of patent? See, evergreening of patent means renewal of the old patent on old drugs. As far as pharmaceutical is concerned, renewal of patent on old drugs by making small incremental changes. So you are not you're not making many technological changes, or you're not making substantial changes in that drugs. You are only adding some incremental changes here and there you're making, and you want to renew the patent. This is called as evergreening of patent. Now India is not ready. Indian law do not allow evergreening of patents. Now India fears that any commitment over and above WTO intellectual property regime is not acceptable because it will undermine India's capacity to produce generic drugs. See, India is one of the largest suppliers of generic drugs. Generic drugs means non-branded drugs to countries like Africa. In fact, India is called as pharmacy of the world. So India argues that by allowing evergreening of patents, Indian generic drug industry, which is a world leader, will be affected. Yes. Then both have disagreements in service sector. See, as far as India service sector is concerned, India enjoys upper hand with European Union. See, India enjoys trade surplus with European Union because of service sector. But India argues that the service sector in European Union is very restrictive. It is very restrictive, and that is why India wants greater market access in service sector. Because service sector contributes. The contribution of service sector in GDP is highest. It is around 60%. So it is very natural that India will seek improved market access in service sector. Whereas the contribution of service sector in European Union countries is not as high as that in India. There, the contribution of manufacturing or industrial sector is more, along with the service sector as well. So because of the natural advantage, India, because of this economic composition or the sectoral composition of Indian GDP is biased in favor of service sector. India wants greater access. Now, India's interests lie in what is called as Mode 1. Now, what is Mode 1? Mode 1 covers IT-enabled services, business processing outsourcing, and knowledge processing outsourcing. And Mode 4 covers movement of skilled professionals such as software engineers. So India wants European Union to liberalize rules in Mode 1 and Mode 4. For example, as far as this movement of skilled professionals is concerned, India wants liberalized visa regime for India's skilled professionals. Currently, the visa regime of European Union countries is extremely strict, and it is very expensive as well, and that renders Indian software industries uncompetitive vis-a-vis their European competitors. It prevents the European countries to hire India's high-skilled or high-end software engineers. And along with this, there is also an issue of work permits, wage parity. Then visa formalities, very strict visa rules, then non-recognition of professional qualifications. Very important. So these are the problems which India has with European Union in Mode 4 is concerned. The movement of skilled professionals. These work permits are very difficult to get. The visa is difficult to get. The cost of visa is very high, so on and so forth. It prevents the Indian software industry working in European Union from hiring Indian software engineers. Now, India says that the improved market access in Mode 4 will allow the skilled professionals such as software engineers to temporarily reside and work in European countries. Now, currently, because of the strict rules, they are not able to get visas, or they are getting visas but at a very high cost, very difficult. As far as European Union is concerned, EU demands liberalization in Mode 3 from India. Now, what is Mode 3? Now, Mode 3 services includes further liberalization in FDI, in multi-brand retail, as well as liberalization of FDI rules or quantum of FDI in financial services such as banking, insurance, e-commerce, so on and so forth. Also, accountancy, and legal services. So, European legal firms, they want to enter into India to expand, to tap India's legal service sector. But the Indian legal service industry does not want that. Similarly, European Union wants India liberalization in insurance, banking. The foreign European banks, they are ready to open branches in India, and they want to tap India's relatively untapped banking sector. But the point is that what European Union argue that as far as banking sector is concerned, India's priority sector lending, the requirement of lending to priority sectors such as agriculture, poor people, so on and so forth, and financial inclusion have discouraged foreign banks from entering into India. So they want that the foreign banks should be exempted from foreign priority sector lending. But India say no. The priority sector lending is very, very important to ensure financial inclusion as well as to ensure economic equality. So now because of this priority sector lending, many European banks have surrendered their license and they've left India, like Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and UBS. So in this sector, you want liberalization. Now, next problem with India UBTI is that India wants data secure status to Indian IT industry. India demands that European Union should designate India as a data secure country. See, India is amongst the countries which do not enjoy or is not considered data secure by European Union countries, EU as a group. This is despite the fact that India have made adequate changes in our domestic data protection laws or data privacy laws, and why we have done to ensure the high security of the data that flows from European Union countries to India. So European Union alleges that India's data security laws are very weak, and there are chances of leakage of data, misuse of data, release of sensitive information, so on and so forth. Now, India says that, we have made adequate changes. Now, European Union have this data protection directive. Now, this EU data protection directive requires member countries to ban transfer of sensitive personal data to a non-European Union country unless the nation ensures adequate privacy protection. Now, herein lies the problem, because this prevents the flow of sensitive personal data such as patient information for telemedicine to India under data protection laws of European Union. So data protection laws of European Union are very strict. They want so there is restriction in flow of sensitive personal data being transferred to the non-European country, that is India. So and then that prevents India from tapping the telemedicine sector. But there is one exception to this directive, which allows the outsourcing to non-data secure countries by adhering to very strict standard contractual clauses. See, the entire issue of data secure status is because India wants data secure status because this data secure status will enable European companies in outsourcing business to India. Now, because of this because India does not have data secure status, this prevents European companies from doing business with India. For example, suppose there is any telemedicine company of European Union, it wants to send sensitive patient information. Currently, it can't send, and this prevents the business between India and EU. Now, yes, there is a standard contractual clause, but this is very strict. See, understand that this European companies are doing outsourcing business. The entire issue is about outsourcing. See, outsourcing of business from European Union to India. India, as far as BPO or KPO is concerned, India is a leader, and the majority of the business is being outsourced from European Union to India. But the problem lies with this lack of data secure status. European companies doing outsourcing business with countries that are not certified as data secure have to follow a very stringent contractual obligations. Now, these strict contractual obligations place a strict obligation or strict limit on both the parties, the European outsourcing companies and Indian partner, to ensure the privacy of data. And this contractual obligation increases the cost, and this renders India as uncompetitive. I mean, it enhances the competitiveness of Indian software industry. Why? Because this stringent contractual obligations, they increase operating costs, and thereby it affects the competitiveness of Indian software industry. So that is why India wants data secure status. Then this lack of data secure status also prevents the high-end outsourced business from flowing into India. So because of this, the high-end outsourced business is not coming to India; it is coming to other countries which enjoy data secure status, and that limits our outsourcing business. That limits our software industry, not outsourcing business, the software industry. Much of the BPO, much of the business processing outsourcing, because of this work, it comes to India. It is still coming to India, but it is not high end. Much of this BPO business which comes to India from European Union is low end, and it is a data processing work. It does not involve high end sensitive information. So the potential of BPO industry, outsourcing industry in India, will enhance if we get the data secure status, because it will allow the flow of sophisticated outsourced work in various fields such as health, clinical research, engineering design, as well as intellectual property rights coming to India. Currently, it is very less. So the potential in this field, in these services, health, clinical research, others, it will increase, and thereby India's trade with European Union. All right. So, but this high-end business processing outsourced business will increase once India get the data secure status, because with data secure status, European Union will lift the restrictions on flow of sophisticated outsourcing business to India. So the sophisticated outsourcing business will come to India, which will help our software or BPO industry, IT-enabled services industry, ITES. Yes, then the lifting of data flow restrictions will boost the trade in a significant manner, because the India's IT BPO industry is one of the largest in the world. That is $100 billion, and the 30% of India's IT BPO exports, they go to the European market. So therein lies the importance of data secure status. So this is, I hope this is clear. Then the next problem is EU's objection to propose a data localization clause in recently withdrawn data privacy, data protection or data privacy law, which has been withdrawn by Indian government recently. India wants data secure status, whereas European Union wants it objects to the proposed data localization requirement in India. Now, what is data localization? See, data localization refers to the regulations that dictate how the data on national nation's citizens is collected, processed, and stored inside the country. So this is what data localization is all about. How the data, the personal data, or personal information of the country's citizens would be stored. It would be collected, it would be processed, and how it would be stored inside the country. Now, if data generated in India is say stored in Germany, then it is dependent on technology and channels such as the undersea fiber optic cable networks. So that is a great disadvantage. So such reliance about the data stored about Indian citizens in other countries, like say Germany, basically makes us rely on the various things such as undersea fiber optical cable network that might reduce or limit access to data, personal data about Indian citizens, which has been stored in other countries. Now, India says that such reliance can be very debilitating or weakening in case of tech or physical breakdown. So what if there is a physical breakdown? What if there are technical glitches in say Germany where the data about Indian citizens is stored? And what if India want or Indian security agencies, intelligence agencies, they want this data, right? So India argues that data localization is very, very important for law enforcement. Right? See, data localization is very important in context of certain social media platforms like Twitter or Facebook, which has personal information of Indian citizens. So India argues that we need to have access to data as far as Indian law enforcement agencies is concerned. So why do we need this in case of breach or threat? So our law enforcement agencies will require access to data of Indian citizens, and for that we cannot be dependent on whims and fancies of other countries where the data is stored. They might not give us access. Then when the data about Indian citizens is stored in other countries, it involves the lengthy legal process. So lengthy legal process has to be followed. That too of another nation which hosts the data which is generated in India. In this context, one committee was set up, that is Justice Sri Krishna Committee. Now, this Justice Sri Krishna Committee recommended that at least a copy of the data about Indian citizen access, processed, stored by the foreign countries must be stored in India. Yes, you can store the personal information about our citizens in the servers located in other countries, but we must be given one copy of that data so that our law enforcement agencies can get access to that data, and we don't have to follow the cumbersome lengthy legal process to access the data, and we don't want to depend on the whims and fancies of the foreign government. So this key observation of this committee was that it is ideal to have the entire data stored locally, that is in India only. The foreign companies operating in India which collect, process, and store data about Indian citizens, they must store the data locally and not in the servers located within their own boundaries. So ideally, instead of copy, the original data should be stored in India. This is what was the recommendation. But it says that no, okay, let's be practical. This will be going too far. That only the data should be stored only locally in India, in servers located in India, not in foreign countries. So as a result of that, as a practical solution, it gave a recommendation that at least a copy of data about Indian citizens should be stored locally, if not the entire original data. Now, this is very important according to the committee to protect Indian data from foreign surveillance. See, data is new oil in 21st century. It's like oil is important. Data is access to data is very empowering. It is one of the important factors for knowledge economy. So data is new oil, and that is in that context the Sri Krishna Committee report recommended data localization, storing a copy of data about Indian citizens locally, along with the foreign servers located in foreign countries. Now, based on the recommendation of Justice B.N. Sri Krishna Committee, the data protection law, the data protection bill was drafted, which also included data localization clause. Now, European Union objected to this clause. Now, European Union is seeking unrestricted cross-border flow between itself and India, including allowing storage of data in European Union's 27 countries. So, data about Indian citizens collected in India should be stored in the countries from which those companies come. So, then I told you that India and countries like United States, they have also criticized this data localization clause as most discriminatory and trade distortive. This data localization clause will prevent the European companies from accessing Indian market. Then European Union has also stated that this data localization requirement it is harmful. It is unnecessary, and it is potentially harmful because it would create unnecessary cost, because along with the foreign servers you have to install servers here, then the cost of buildings, so on and so forth. It will fraught with difficulties, and there will be uncertainties that could hamper the business and investments of the European companies in India. Now, European Union argues that if implemented, this data localization provision would also likely to hinder data transfer. So now, how data localization requirement will increase cost for say European companies. The disadvantage of a company disadvantage for a company when it is compelled to localize data or store data it involves cost. Now, cost in terms of servers to store where will we store the data? The servers. Then you will have UPS, then generators, cooling cost of building, cost of personnel, so on and so forth. So it is very costly. And companies argue that the infrastructure in India is not ready for such kind of ecosystem. And for any e-commerce player in India, those who work in e-commerce, see the data localization is important not only for Facebook or Twitter, countries like Facebook or Twitter, because they are not from European countries, they're US countries, but also some of the e-commerce companies which operate in the field, so in e-commerce field. So the European Union argue that for any large e-commerce player in India, the cost may increase, and that is between 10% to 15%, depending how the data localization clause is implemented. But the withdrawal of the personal data protection bill in August 2022 is a good news as far as India-EU BTI negotiation, as far as this particular issue is concerned. Now they can move ahead. But India has argued that we have withdrawn this bill, but because of so many amendments we have to move, and that is why we will come with another fresh bill altogether. Then there are other issues as well, like inclusion of labor and environmental standards. So European Union wants to include labor and environmental standards, which India considers as non-tariff, these are non-trade related issues. and which India calls that these are not trade-related issues. These are extraneous issues, and India objects to European Union using the stricter labor and environmental standards to prevent the import of Indian goods and services accessing European markets. Now, European Union also objects to India's inconsistent tax regime. You must be aware about the Hutch Vodafone deal and the retrospective taxation, the fine, and so on and so forth. That has not gone well with European Union as a group. Then, as far as India is concerned, India objects to non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers. Now, non-tariff barriers are not related to tax or custom duties or import and export duties. They're not related to. Now, where does India object this? So first, labor and environmental standards. These are non-tariff barriers. So European Union have more often than not have used the labor and violation of labor standards, labor laws, violation of environmental standards, which are very strict. European Union, India's labor and environmental standards are not that strict. So European Union has used this labor and strict labor and environmental standards to restrict the import of Indian goods and services in European Union. And India said, oh, this is non-tariff barrier. This is not fair. You are using you're banning access to European market for Indian goods and services on the pretext of this so-called labor and environmental standards, which are not related issues. Then India has also objected to certain non-tariff barriers such as sanitary and phytosanitary standards. Health. These standards are regarding the health, so on and so forth. Now, see, European Union has very strict sanitary and phytosanitary standards, right? Now, these standards are regarding quality of food, the quality of food or quality of goods, particularly fruits and vegetables. It must be high. They must not, the fruits and vegetables must not contain pests. They must not affect the health of European people, so on and so forth. Now, on the pretext of the sanitary and phytosanitary standards, in 2018, European Union banned Alfonso mango. The import of Alfonso mango from India to European Union was banned. Now, this was not justified because India argued that you are using these non-tariff barriers on the ground that the Alfonso mango, one of the consignment of Alfonso mangoes was infected with pest to restrict access to European market for Indian Alfonso mangoes, because your domestic mango producers are not able to compete with India's king of mangoes, that is Alfonso. So you are using this as a pretext. Just because one of the consignments was infected with pest, you have banned the entire export of Indian mangoes to European Union countries. This is not justified. Same thing European Union has done in context of other fruits and vegetables as well, in where India enjoys comparative advantage in Europe vis-a-vis European producers. So then, as far as investment is concerned, European Union also wants most favored nation status, MFN, as a part of investment treaty. Now, what is most favored nation status? You must have studied this in economics. See, most favored nation status suggests that there will be a special preference given to the country which enjoys most favored nation status, but this is not so. Most favored nation status, according to WTO, means, or it is related to non-discrimination. Non-discrimination between trade partners. So, according to most favored nation status, once the country is given most favored nation status, then the country will treat all its trade partners similarly. So there will not be any special treatment to. So once the most favored nation status is given to the other country, then India, for example, India will treat all its trade partners, including the country which has, including the countries which have only the countries which have most favored nation, equally. So in case of MFN status, if suppose India gives tariff concession to any of our trade partners in any goods or service, then we will have to give that concession, tariff concession to all the countries which are our trade partners, which enjoy most favored nation status. So if the country gets most favored nation status, then it would India is not allowed to discriminate between our other trade partners and the country which has most favored nation status. So if you want to give concession to a specific country, you have to give concession to all the countries which enjoy most favored nation status. So it is not special status; it is just an equal status. If you want to treat someone favorably, treat everyone favorably. Do not discriminate between your trade partners. So European Union wants most favored nation status to be included in investment treaty. Now India objects to this. Then European Union also wants a fair and equitable treatment clause or fair and equitable treatment provision in investment treaties. Fair and equitable investment provision in investment treaty or investment matters between India and European Union will allow the European companies to hold accountable the Indian government for its arbitrary policies. So this is what European Union wants. These are other issues. Then European Union is also critical of India's Make in India move. It is also critical of India's recently launched Atmanirbhar Bharat. European Union argues that this is protectionist measure and it is violation of WTO rules, so on and so forth. So it wants India not to focus more on Atmanirbhar or self-reliance. They said this is trade distortive measure. This is a blatant example of trade protectionism. So these are all issues which have prevented the India and European Union from entering into the trade deal, free trade deal. Now, why India should seal BTIA deal with European Union? It's very, very important. A series of economic and geostrategic factors make the need for an economic deal between India and European Union. It's very important because a trade agreement with India and EU will help India to further expand and diversify our exports of goods and services, and also it will include securing the value chains. So yes, if we need to clinch the BTIA, we need to resolve our differences in a diplomatic, in a peaceful manner. Why? Because it will help India not only expand our goods and services exports, but also diversify the exports, including securing the key value chains. Then this will also, the India-EU BTA will also enhance the competitiveness of India's exports in European market, because European Union has free trade deal with other countries, and these countries get this. And as far as these countries are concerned, the custom duties there are less vis-a-vis Indian custom duties on Indian goods and services, and that renders the competitiveness of Indian exports. That makes Indian exports to European countries uncompetitive. Now, once BTA is signed, the tariffs will be lower, and this will enhance the competitiveness of Indian exports to European market. the India-EU BTIA is also very, very important because the global economy, including Indian economy, is suffering from EU-China trade war, and because of this, it is very, very important for India to pursue FTA with European Union, because India's trade with USA has affected, and also with other countries affected due to this ongoing trade war between USA and China. Surprisingly, India is the only major power which does not have free trade agreement with any of its top trade partners. Like European Union, we have seen that European Union is India's second largest trade partner. India does not have free trade. India does not have free trade agreement with USA, China, as well as Gulf economies, and this is a disadvantage. This situation is absolutely not tenable because most of the trade is now driven either by FTAs or global value chains. So not having FTA with India's major trade partners, including USA, including European Union, is not helping India. Now, another factor which makes it urgent for India is the change in attitude of European Union as far as giving India certain concessions is concerned. Now, USA is willing to make concessions. The EU negotiators are now more willing to make concessions on, say, labor and environmental regulations, which used to be an unsurmountable obstacle as far as the free trade between India and EU is concerned. Previously, they were very adamant or rigid in India, following the strict trade and strict labor and environmental standards. They were very rigid, including these standards as a part of FTA. Now, the another factor which makes it urgent for India to, or both India and EU, is the collapse of transatlantic trade and investment partnership, as well as concerns about excessive economic reliance of European Union as well as of India on China. These two things have propelled EU to become very flexible, little more pragmatic as far as granting concession to India on certain issues is concerned. Then BTIA is also important for India in the context of limited economic benefits, which India has been able to secure from its free trade agreement with Asian countries. As far as FTA with Asian countries are concerned, India has not been able to garner a substantive benefit. In fact, in more sectors, in some sectors such as agriculture, dairy, fishery, the Asian countries have benefited more than Indian countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, so on and so forth. So on one hand, India has got very limited benefit from FTA with Asian countries. Then India does not have trade FTA with major economies. Then India has also withdrawn from Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement (RCEP), and on the other hand, majority of the trade is driven by FTA agreements. So this all factors make it all the more important for India and European Union to clinch the BTIA. See, India has already clinched FTA recently with Australia as well as UAE. India is in process of signing FTA with some other countries like Canada and UK. So why not with European Union? It's very, very important. It's necessary. Because it will help India not only economically but also strategically, from geopolitical point of view. From geopolitical point of view, also the FTA with BTIA with European Union is beneficial for India, because India as well as European Union would be able to reduce its dependence on China. See, India is overly dependent on China economically. See, most of the manufacturing products they come from China to India. I'll give an example of one sector, that is pharmaceutical sector. Now, India is a world leader in pharma industry, generic pharma production of generic drugs. But for manufacturing of drugs, what is required is API, active pharmaceutical ingredient (API). Now, the 70% of this API comes from China. Now, what if China bans this export of API to India? Our entire pharmaceutical industry will collapse, and this is very important as far as health is a critical sector. And reducing the economic dependence on China is also very important from strategic point of view, because with China, India have long-standing border disputes. India do not want Chinese increasing expansionism within Indian Ocean region, which has been our traditional zone of influence. So to contain China's expansionism, to contain China's aggressive foreign policy, India must reduce its dependence on China, because if we are dependent on China, then China on any given day might exploit this India's dependent on China. So, and this is important not only for India but also for European Union. Even European Union wants to reduce its dependence on China. So we must not look at BTIA only from economic angle. We must not look at it. We must not think the BTIA on the basis of economic cost benefit analysis. We must go beyond it, and we must look at this. We must approach this BTIA from a geostrategic perspective, because we must move beyond USA and China, which is our traditional market. EU is also our traditional market. We are also diversifying our trade basket as well as our trade market to non-EU China, beyond our traditional trade partners like Japan, US, China, European Union. But we have not been able to do that successfully. So we need to focus again on our traditional partners such as European Union. So considering the international environment, this is the right time for India to engage European Union as an indispensable democratic partner to craft a favorable geo-economic order. So BTIA is going to be a win-win deal for both. So India should attempt, both India and European Union should attempt to clinch this BTIA, which will go a long way in securing economic benefits to each other, not only economic benefits but also geostrategic benefits for both the countries. So yeah, what can be the conclusion? Yes, so in complex international environment, both India and European Union, which are unions of diversity, they are both multi-ethnic and multi-linguistic and multi-religious countries. They share common values of democracy, pluralism, secularism, rule of law, respect for human rights, respect for basic freedoms, so on and so forth. So there is commonality of values between India and European Union. Then both are equally convinced about the necessity to preserve the rule-based, fair, just, equitable global order. Both European Union and India are committed to multilateralism, opposed to the growing unilateralism across the world. So India and EU have common interest in each other's security, prosperity, and sustainable development as well. As a democratic countries, as a countries which share common values, as a countries which believe in common, as a countries who have common vision of global order, a countries which believe in multilateralism, everything is perfect for India and EU to enter into economic partnership. And both countries are also committed to fight the threat of climate change. Both are committed to safer, cleaner, prosperous, and stable global order. So India and EU must speed up the negotiations negotiations and must ensure that VTIA is broad-based, it is inclusive, it is comprehensive, and it is based on the principles of fairness and reciprocity. And that is what they are trying to do. So with this sentence, you can end your answer. So this is it with India-EU VTIA negotiations. Let's quickly move forward and discuss the recent developments in Afghanistan. Now, let us understand about Afghanistan as a country. Afghanistan is a landlocked country in South Asia. It enjoys a strategic location. It was a key focal point during the ancient Silk Road. It was strategically located. Then Afghanistan is also strategically situated along important trade routes from which connect southern and eastern Asia to Europe and the Middle East. So Afghanistan is strategically located at the crossroad of Central Asia and South Asia, and it is located where the important trade routes they connect, the Asia with Europe as well as Middle East. So it's very strategically, it's very, very important. See, strategic location is one of the important determinants of countries' importance in world affairs. For example, India is strategically located in Indian Ocean region. That increases the India's strategic importance. Now, the country is also strategically located adjacent to the Central Asian countries, which are oil and gas rich. There, it is also located close to the oil and gas rich West Asia region. Then Afghanistan is very rich in natural resources such as rare earth materials, as well as rare earth metals, as well as precious, as well as other minerals. Now, because of its strategic location, Afghanistan is rightly referred to as the heart of Asia. Yes, it is heart of Asia. And for ages, the Afghanistan, unfortunately, has been the center of power struggle, power politics between superpowers. During Cold War, Afghanistan was a center of power struggle between USA and USSR because USSR intervened in Afghanistan in 1979. It was there in Afghanistan in 1989, so it was a center of power struggle. Now, you know, one thing about Afghanistan is that whoever tried to intervene in Afghanistan, they have suffered a massive defeat, and that is why Afghanistan is rightly known as a graveyard of empire. You know, Europe, Russia, and UK could not maintain their hegemony and dominance in Afghanistan during 17th and 18th century. Not even during the world wars. Then Russia, Soviet Union could not maintain their dominance in Afghanistan. It had to withdraw with no achievements, no gains in 1989 from Afghanistan. Same fate. America also had the same fate. It intervened in Afghanistan in 2001, had to withdraw from Afghanistan after 20 years of war without securing its security goals, its strategic goals. So Afghanistan, because of this, is rightly known as graveyard of empire. Now, this one particular phrase will make things clear to you about Afghanistan. Now, Alexander the Great, you know, he had to withdraw from Bactria, from the Afghanistan's part. It was the Afghanistan, the hostile climate, the hostile tribal lords, tribal leaders prevented Alexander the Great in his eastward journey towards India. So Alexander the Great, he said that may God keep you away from venom of cobra, the teeth of tiger, and the revenge of Afghan people. Now, this makes it very clear how Afghan people are very proud of their independence, of their freedom, so on and so forth. Now, let us understand quickly about India-Afghanistan relations. India and Afghanistan have a very strong relationship, which are not new, which are based on age-old historic and cultural linkages. The relationship is not only limited to government-to-government relationship. Relationship also extends to people-to-people contacts. So the foundation between the India and Afghanistan relations lies with the historical contacts and exchanges between people of Afghanistan and Indian people. Then, since time immemorial, how the people-to-people contacts have flourished between India and Afghanistan since ages. See, since ages, the people of Afghanistan and India are coming, have interacted with each other through trade, through commerce, and they have since time immemorial, since ancient times, they have been peacefully coexisting with each other on the basis of shared cultural values and communities. So we have a very strong past as far as the relation is concerned. Then, during Soviet-Afghan War, 1979 and 1989, India was the only South Asian country which recognized the Soviet-backed Democratic Republic of Afghanistan. Then India also provided humanitarian aid to the then Afghanistan president Najibullah. You know, its government. We provided humanitarian aid. It is not as if we have started giving humanitarian aid recently. No, even during Soviet intervention, we provided humanitarian aid. Then, following the withdrawal of Soviet forces from Afghanistan in 1989, India continued to provide humanitarian assistance to Afghan government. Then India also, but however, India reduced its presence. It scaled down its presence in early 1990s as a result of Afghanistan becoming war zone, as a result of infighting between the Mujahideen groups. See, when the Soviet Union intervened in Afghanistan, the United States of America, it trained, it financed, it provided arms and equipments to local Afghan insurgents known as Mujahideens. So Mujahideens were created by and funded and motivated by US, and later on they haunted, and even still they are haunting United States of America. And that is why it is very important that you have to have a zero tolerance policy towards terrorism. You can't use the terrorist groups or insurgents to your own advantage. You're bound to fail, and this US attempt shows that. So 1990s, India scaled down our presence. In 1990s, India also witnessed the increase of cross-border infiltration of trained militants in Kashmir. Now, because of this, India reduced its presence. Then what happened in Afghanistan was taken over by Taliban in 1996. There was a Taliban rule in Afghanistan from 1996 to 2001. In 2001, America invaded Afghanistan and brought down the Taliban regime and tried to establish a democratically elected puppet government in Afghanistan, as we can see. Now, following this Taliban's takeover in Afghanistan in 1996, India suspended our diplomatic ties with Afghanistan and closed our embassy in Kabul because we could not engage with the tribal warlords or the insurgent groups who do not believe in democracy, human rights, pluralism, freedom, so on and so forth. In 1999, what India did is, along with Iran and Russia, India supported Northern Alliance. Now, Northern Alliance was anti-Taliban. It was a resistance front against Taliban. It was led by charismatic Afghan leader Ahmad Shah Massoud. So India, on one hand, suspended its diplomatic ties with Taliban control Afghanistan. On the other hand, we joined anti-Taliban Northern Alliance. which operated from Panjshir. This leader of this alliance operated from Panjshir Valley. Then came the 1919 hijack of Indian plane IC-814. This was a flight from Kathmandu to Delhi, which was hijacked by terrorists, and it was taken to Afghanistan. And during that period in 1999, Taliban was in power in Afghanistan. Now, this hijacking episode of Indian airline flight ended with release of terrorist groups. And one of the terrorists went to form Jaish-e-Mohammed, which is fomenting terrorism and attacking India. So at that time the Taliban government was in power, and because of lack of support we got from Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, when India was in a dire need of assistance, we wanted to fight with these terrorist groups, these hijackers, but unfortunately, unfriendly Taliban government was not supportive. It was in place. It was in power. Now this led to hardening of anti-Taliban perception in India. So India-Taliban enjoy bitter relations since 1999. Now, following the fall of Taliban regime in 2001, India returned to reopen its embassy. So diplomatic relations were re-established in 2001. Then in post-Taliban Afghanistan, India found a welcoming environment with Northern Alliance leaders holding the key posts. So after 2001 till August 2021, India basically found a positive environment wherein the democratically elected leaders from Northern Alliance, they were holding the key power positions, key ministries. Now India became Afghanistan's regional development partner during this period, 2001 to 2021, because in 2021 Afghanistan was once again the power was once again captured by Taliban. So during this period, India became one of the biggest regional donors, one of the regional developmental partners of Afghanistan. In 2005, India supported Afghanistan's membership of SAARC, and because of India's help, it became member of SAARC in 2007. Now, in recent past, till 2021, India-Afghanistan relations have been further strengthened by what is called as a very significant strategic partnership agreement, which was signed between India and Afghanistan in 2021. India was the first country with which Afghanistan has signed strategic partnership agreement, SPA. Now, under this SPA, India is providing humanitarian assistance or reconstruction aid to help rebuild Afghanistan's infrastructure, rebuild Afghanistan's institutions, help Afghanistan in various fields such as education, providing Afghanistan technical assistance to rebuild Afghanistan's indigenous Afghan capacity in different areas, and also encourage investment in Afghanistan's natural resources. So India is also providing duty-free market access to Afghanistan's goods and services to Indian market. As a landlocked, least developed countries, we give duty-free, quota-free market access. Then India is also the 6th largest donor in Afghanistan, and also one of the largest regional donors. We are running various infrastructure projects. We are also running various projects in the field of education and agriculture. Now, during the last 2 decades, India has provided development assistance to the tune of more than $3 billion for as an aid. So this more than $3 billion humanitarian assistance is huge. This has been provided to rebuild the Afghanistan. This has been provided for reconstruction of Afghanistan, which is a war-torn country. Also for infrastructure development and rebuilding the governance capacity, and with specific focus on human resource development. Now, the key infrastructure projects completed by India in Afghanistan are: number one, the construction of 218-kilometer Zaranj-Delaram highway, to facilitate the movement of goods and services to the Iranian border. Then the construction of Afghanistan-India Friendship Dam, known as Salma Dam, in Herat province, is the second important infrastructure project. Third is construction of Afghanistan Parliament. We have constructed that the Parliament building of Afghanistan. There are many other infrastructure projects which are being run by India and Afghanistan. They include the power transmission lines in the electricity field, which will enable electricity import from Central Asian countries. Then there is also a project regarding road connectivity, a machine tool workshop, television uplink, cold storage units for local agriculture projects. So it is not only these 3 infrastructure projects. India is also running many small infrastructure projects for rural development, agriculture development. Then we have provided Afghanistan with humanitarian assistance in the form of millions of tons of wheat. We have rebuilt hospitals destroyed by terrorist attacks. We are running half a dozen medical camps in Afghanistan, which provide prosthetics and providing minor surgeries to injured Afghan forces as well as people. Then over thousands of Afghan students, they receive scholarship to study in India, study in Indian college and universities. Then the equal number of students, they also attend short-term professional courses. See, I have studied political science from JNU, and I have seen how these scholarships have enabled Afghan students to study in India. There are many Afghanistan students. I had many of my batchmates in JNU, the Center for Political Studies, from Afghanistan. So this is a direct link there. Then UNDP also partnered with India in training Afghanistan's civil servants. Yes, capacity building, human resource development. There also India is helping Afghanistan. Then just to strengthen local governance, India has also funded over 4,000 small development projects that were both proposed and implemented by local NGOs and district level officials. So yes, we are not. So India's development assistance and India's infrastructure projects, they do involve local people from Afghanistan itself. Unlike China, China does not involve the local population from a particular country where it invests in infrastructure development. And there are special projects for skilling and reviving women's enterprises were also taken. So even in women empowerment field, we have assisted Afghanistan. Then India has also signed TAPI pipeline, which aims to bring natural gas from Turkmenistan through Afghanistan and Pakistan to India. So TAPI pipeline is expected to be a game changer for India as far as our energy security is concerned. Then prior to Taliban takeover, India also used to deliver millions of tons of food grains like wheat to Afghanistan via Iran's Chabar port, which is a strategic port. During COVID-19 crisis, India supplied 13 tons of essential medication and winter clothing, as well as 5 lakh doses of Covaxin to Afghanistan. Then in 2021, Government of India committed supplying 50,000 metric tons of wheat for the people of Afghanistan. But and as a part of this commitment, in February 2022, India did send a convoy of 50 trucks carrying 2,500 metric tons of wheat as a humanitarian aid. and this assistance will be through United Nations World Food Program. Now, this consignment was originally offered to Taliban leadership in October 2021. So even after Taliban takeover, India has been true to its commitment to provide humanitarian assistance to Afghan people. So originally it was proposed to send in October 2021, but it was held up due to objection from Pakistan. Now see, after revocation of special status and suspension of Article 20, abrogation of Article 20, as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, Pakistan shut down all trade from Afghanistan, from India going to Afghanistan through Pakistan border. Because of this, we could not. But in June 2022, but later on but now currently we are sending this by commercial flights. Now not through land route, because Pakistan does not allow it. That is why Chabad port is very, very important, because Chabad port allows us India to bypass to reach Afghanistan, bypassing Pakistan through Chabad port. Then in 2022 June, within 24 hours of massive earthquake that hit Afghanistan, Indian Air Force moved with tons of relief, and India was one of the first countries in the region to help Afghanistan. Then India's developmental role in Afghanistan, the role in reconstruction and rebuilding of Afghanistan, has been widely appreciated, not only by international community but also Afghan people, and this has enabled India to win goodwill, massive goodwill from Afghanistan people, because we are helping them to rebuild and reconstruct their country. So India have followed the soft diplomacy in Afghanistan, focusing on humanitarian and developmental initiatives. Now, till 2015, India did not provide any sort of military assistance to Afghanistan because we thought that it will invite anti-India sentiments from Taliban leadership, and we did not want to do that. But in 2016, India gifted 4 Mi-24 attack helicopters to Afghanistan. This Mi-25 helicopters basically were gifted to boost the capacity of Afghanistan Air Force, basically to fight Taliban insurgents, and to enhance the effectiveness of Afghan national defense and security force in fighting the terrorist groups and insurgents, including Taliban. So this was the first time India transferred any lethal military equipment to Afghanistan. Now, despite the close ties between India and Afghanistan, India took until early 2016 to deliver lethal military equipments, weapons to Afghanistan. Why? Obviously, because we have concerns that doing so, providing military assistance, lethal military equipments to Afghanistan, would aggravate Pakistan, which sees increased India's intervention in Afghanistan as potential threat. Pakistan does not like Indian intervention in Afghanistan, including India's developmental assistance. Pakistan wants to enjoy what is called as strategic depth in Afghanistan. It wants to control the Afghanistan government and use Afghanistan as a base to foment terrorism in Kashmir as well as in other parts of India. But in 2016 we did transfer the attack helicopter, and signaled the change in India's approach as well as military assistance is concerned, as well as security, because the Taliban insurgents were making significant gains, and that is why India changed its stand. In 2019, India, as a replacement for these 4 attack helicopters gifted in 2016, India handed over 3 Mi attack helicopters to Afghanistan. So we are continuing with this. Now, let us understand about India and Taliban relationship. See, India and Taliban have a very bitter past. We have discussed about 1919 episode of hijack of IC-814 flight. Wherein the Maulana Masood Azhar was released, and he went on to found Jaish-e-Mohammed, which went on to carry terrorist attacks on India, on Parliament in 2001, in Pathankot in 2016, and Pulwama in 2019. If Taliban government would have supported India, we would have fought. We could have done something else apart from rather than releasing this deadly terrorist. One amongst them was Maulana Masood Azhar. Taliban also perceived India as a hostile country because India had joined anti-Taliban Northern Alliance in 1990s. Then another thing, as far as India and Taliban is concerned, India never gave formal diplomatic recognition to Taliban when it was in power in Afghanistan from 1996 to 2001. Even today, India has not rendered official recognition to Taliban government, which is in place since August 2021. Now, India has always followed the policy of not differentiating between good Taliban and the bad Taliban. India has a policy of rejecting terrorism in all its forms and manifestation. We have this policy of zero tolerance towards terrorism. We argue that talk and terror cannot go together. Whereas on the other hand, Pakistan and other countries like United States of America, they differentiated between good Taliban and bad Taliban and started engaging with what they so-called consider good Taliban. But India did not follow this policy. We say that no, terrorists are terrorists. They cannot be differentiated, and we need to condemn all forms of terrorism. Now, because of this policy on terrorism, India did not establish any diplomatic communication with the Taliban since 2001. Even during 1990s, we did not have any communication whatsoever with Taliban, not even through back channel or track 2 diplomacy. See, back channel or track 2 diplomacy does not involve official government officials like political leaders, bureaucrats, ambassadors, military officials. No, the back channel or track 2 talks involve non-officials like retired bureaucrats, retired ambassadors, retired army officials, people from media, journalists, and people belonging to NGOs, so on and so forth. We did not even engage with Taliban through track 2 or back channel. Instead, India chose to support the democratically elected Afghanistan government. We supported Afghanistan government in their fight with Taliban insurgents. Then India also had a continuous or consistent policy of supporting sovereign, democratic, inclusive, prosperous, peaceful Afghanistan, where the interests of all the sections of Afghan society, including women, children, and minorities, are protected. And India has always supported a broad-based, inclusive process of peace and reconciliation in Afghanistan, which will preserve the unity and plurality and bring security, stability, and prosperity in the country. These are not my words. These are the official words of Indian government of India, and that is why it's very important to write these words, write these views as it is in your answer, because that is our official view. then India's consistent policy that all these efforts, all the efforts towards peace and reconciliation in Afghanistan, this peace process, this peace and reconciliation process should be Afghan-led, Afghan-owned, and Afghan-controlled, and it should be with the participation of government of Afghanistan. You cannot exclude democratically Afghanistan government in any peace or reconciliation process. But unfortunately, there is no democratically elected government now. The democratically elected government has been overthrown by Taliban in 2021. But before that, India followed this policy that in any peace and reconciliation process should be Afghan-led, Afghan-owned, Afghan-controlled, involve Afghanistan government. Unfortunately, when USA signed a peace deal known as Doha Agreement with Taliban in February 2020, Afghanistan government was not part of that peace. It was not involved. So ultimately, what happened is isolation of democratically elected government of Afghanistan because of opposition from Taliban leadership. Then India continued to extend all supports to the government and people of Afghanistan in realizing their aspiration for a very peaceful, democratic, prosperous future, where the interests of all sections of Afghan society, including women, children, minorities, whose human rights are being violated by Taliban, are protected. India believes that no country, including Pakistan, should try to take advantage of the delicate situation in Afghanistan. And no country, referring to the Pakistan indirectly, should use Afghanistan to its own selfish interest. So this has also been India's official policy. Now let us discuss what have been the consequences of US withdrawal from Taliban and consequent return of Taliban on India. Now, I told you that United States of America and Afghanistan, they signed a peace deal in February 2020 in Doha, known as Doha Agreement, whereby United States of America agreed to withdraw from Afghanistan, and Taliban, on the other hand, promised not to allow its soil not to allow Afghanistan soil for terrorist activities against foreign countries, specifically United States of America. America, on the other hand, said that we will withdraw our forces from Afghanistan, and then Taliban government also secured what it wanted. It secured withdrawal of sanctions on its Taliban leadership, US withdrawal, as well as release of political prisoners. So with American withdrawal ended the 20 years of war which US fought with Taliban without any gains. It had to leave Afghanistan with lost millions of rupees, lost millions of dollars, lost property lost, and no strategic benefit. Afghanistan have finally came to power. Now understand that USA's involvement in Afghanistan was very, very important for India, because USA's involvement of USA militarily acted as a security guarantee to India's developmental projects, India's infrastructure projects in Afghanistan. But now the withdrawal of American troops, American military in Afghanistan created a political vacuum, and that political vacuum was filled in by the Taliban, by taking over the Afghan government. Now, what is the impact? First is the safe haven for terrorist groups. So Taliban may allow terrorist groups to provide safe haven and use its soil, and allow the terrorist groups, particularly the Pakistan-based terrorist groups, in launching terrorist attacks in other countries, particularly in India and particularly in Kashmir. There might be the Taliban rule in India Taliban rule in Afghanistan is extremely bad news for India, because it might lead to increase in infiltration, the terrorist infiltration in Jammu and Kashmir. There might be a resurgence of Islamic State in the world. Now, this we have seen recently, that how the Taliban government it gave a sanctuary or safe havens to leaders, terrorist groups like leaders of Al Qaeda, so on and so forth. And recently, one of the leaders was found in Afghanistan. See, understand that Afghanistan-Pakistan border along Durand line is an epicenter of terrorism, and India being a neighbor, India is very close to this Afghanistan-Pakistan border, this epicenter of terrorism, and that is because of this coming of Taliban, which is the insurgent group which has used terrorist methods to secure power, is not good. It might affect security of India. It might increase violence in Jammu and Kashmir, and it may lead to launching terrorist attacks in India, in various other parts, as well as in Jammu and Kashmir, with the help of Pakistan and ISI. The terrorist groups can launch terrorist attacks with the help of Pakistan, may use Afghanistan as a base to foment instability in Jammu and Kashmir. Then Pakistan is also strategically likely to dominate the region. Yes, coming of Taliban government in power in Afghanistan have helped Pakistan's cause, because Taliban and Pakistan enjoy good relationship since the Russian Soviet Union intervention in Afghanistan. It has won the strategic depth, much needed strategic depth in Afghanistan. It might use this strategic depth in Afghanistan against India. Then the withdrawal of USA and coming of Taliban might increase Chinese intervention in South Asia, particularly in Afghanistan. And China is looking to secure its interest in Afghanistan, in addition to filling the vacuum. So China is willing to exploit Afghanistan's mineral wealth, trying to use Afghanistan for its ambitious Belt and Road Initiative projects, so on and so forth. Then another impact is threat to India's investment and projects in Afghanistan. I've told you that India has invested massively in Afghanistan. India is running so many infrastructure projects, and India have already completed those infrastructure projects. Now coming of Taliban to power, exposes those infrastructure projects to the attacks from various terrorist groups. Because of these projects, India has been able to win the support of Afghanistan people. The political, the goodwill which India enjoys in Afghanistan people is due to those infrastructure projects. Now, when USA was there, when US military was there, it acted as a guarantee for India's investment in Afghanistan. But now this might be exposed to the insecurity and to the terrorist groups. Then the Taliban takeover will further delay the Taliban the TAPI pipeline, which affects India's security. Then it is also blow. The Taliban's takeover is also blow to India's connectivity efforts to Central Asia. It is very important for Connect Central Asia policy, as well as the Connect West Asia policy. Afghanistan is very important because of its strategic location. Then Taliban's coming into power also has impact, also might lead to regional instability in South Asia, and it might increase refugee crisis, particularly in India. Then there are concerns about human rights violations, particularly for women, children, and minorities. Taliban is against women's education. It is known for violating the human rights of non-Muslim minorities, Ahmadiyya Muslims. Even within the Muslims, they discriminate against Ahmadiyya Muslims, Hajaras, so on and so forth. Now, why Afghanistan is important for India? Yes, we have already told you that Afghanistan is central to India's security. From security point of view, Afghanistan is very important. We have seen that how Afghanistan-Pakistan border is epicenter of terrorism. In fact, historically the attacks on India's northern frontier, they have come from Khyber Pass. So Afghanistan remains very critical for India's security. Then coming to Taliban coming of power, power of Taliban in Afghanistan might spread terrorism, extremism to Kashmir. It might lead to regional instability. Then the drug trafficking. Afghanistan is also a part of golden triangle. It's notorious for drug trafficking. In fact, drug trafficking is one of the important source of revenue for the Taliban insurgents. So the drug trafficking might increase, particularly in border regions of India, like Punjab, so on and so forth, and which might further aggravate the dangerous drug situation in states like Punjab. Then yes, Afghanistan is also important for India to counter Pakistan as well as China's Western interest. We must not allow Pakistan to use Afghanistan as a base to foment terrorist attacks or foment terrorism in India, or to wage proxy war against India in Kashmir from Afghanistan. Then it is also important for connectivity with Central Asia. Yes, Afghanistan is a gateway of India to Central Asia, which is energy rich, oil and gas rich, and with which India is trying to increase our engagement. It's very important for opening of markets, export of Indian goods and services in Central Asia. It is also a gateway for link West Asia policy. Then export market for Indian companies. Obviously, yes, Afghanistan, peaceful, stable Afghanistan can give us economic benefit. Then the mineral wealth of Afghanistan is also very important because Afghanistan has a very vast resources of rare earth metals such as gold, silver, zinc, mercury, so on and so forth. And this mineral wealth of Afghanistan is estimated anywhere between $1 trillion to $3 trillion in 2020. So we can tap this mineral wealth of Afghanistan. Then Tapi pipeline is also very important because it will go through Afghanistan. So stability is very, very important. Security of that Tapi pipeline is very important, and Tapi pipeline is very important for energy-hungry India. Now, should India talk with Taliban? Now, this is very, very important issue. See, the opinion is divided over this issue. Now, some scholars whenever it comes to India, Afghanistan, you have to write some scholarly opinions. But at the same time, do not overdo this. What I have seen is that student writing according to this. No, examiner also wants you to write your own opinions and your own observation as well. So yes, write down the views of some key scholars, but don't overdo it. Now, the scholars like Harshpant C. Rajamohan are in favor of India's increasing engagement, incremental engagement with Taliban through back-channel diplomacy, and whereas others like Suhasini Haidar, they do not support this. Suhasini Haidar argues that Taliban is after all an insurgent group which has no respect for democracy, human rights, rule of law, freedom, women rights, so on and so forth, the minority rights. So India should not talk with Taliban. That is what the view she takes. Now, India so far have followed soft power diplomacy. Now, this becomes a very important theoretical term. We have followed this soft power diplomacy in Afghanistan primarily because of two reasons. Number one, India is known for risk-averse, sedated diplomacy. We do not take much risk. India is also known as cautious. This is also known as cautious prudence, and we followed this. We continued this policy in Afghanistan. Then we followed this soft power diplomacy because of US pressure on India. Because for USA, Pakistan's support was very, very important in fights against insurgent groups, including Taliban in Afghanistan. And Pakistan laid a condition that no military footprints would be allowed from India. No Indian military footprints, and not even peacekeepers. So because of this, India limited to soft power diplomacy, giving developmental and humanitarian assistance. Now, so according to C. Rajamohan, when India limited itself to a soft power diplomacy, India was in fact pursuing Pakistan's India policy in Afghanistan, because Pakistan wanted India not to intervene militarily. Pakistan wanted India's limited presence, and that is what it secured. So India was following Pakistan's India policy. He's very critical of India's Afghanistan policy. C. Rajamohan calls India's Afghanistan policy as masterly inactive policy. He further calls it as Panipat syndrome. It is a very confusing policy. According to C. Rajamohan, by restricting its role in Afghanistan, India did outsource its security to United States of America, which ultimately withdrew from Afghanistan in 2020, and now India is nowhere. India is suddenly out of options. India is running out of options because we consider USA as guarantee for India's guarantee of India's security, because US troops were there, the military was there, it acted as a guarantee of development projects, but USA has withdrawn. So that is why C. Rajamohan is critical. So C. Rajamohan has argued that in fact there have been many occasions when Afghanistan government itself, under Karzai as well as the Ghani government, invited India for greater role in Afghanistan, but India did not do so. Even the Trump administration, US and the Trump administration also held that India should send military footprints or military footprints in India, but India have been reluctant to send military troops, military personnel, even to train the members of Afghanistan defense forces. Now, this policy, I think, this policy is good because now Taliban has come to power. Now, if India would have sent military support or military footprints, then Taliban would have been really anti. Now it is anti-India, but it would have further increased or intensified anti-India feelings in Afghanistan. Taliban. Now, what is the key point here? Now, by exercising hard power or by exercising hard power or having military footprints in Afghanistan, India did not wish to provoke the Taliban. Yes, and also to invite a tragedy like IC-814 hijack. So in that sense, this policy is justified. Now, since Taliban is a non-state actor, now it has come to the power. But before 2021, it was a non-state actor, and even the vast army was not enough to deal with such non-state actors. And because of this, India did not send any military personnel. Now, scholars like Harshpant argue that India should abandon its risk-averse diplomacy. Yes, India should abandon its risk-averse diplomacy and play a proactive role in Afghanistan, the Afghanistan which is currently controlled by Taliban. He points out that Afghanistan is central to India's security, and the invasions to India from northern border have been from Khyber Pass. He argues that India has to ensure peace, security, and stability in Afghanistan to prevent Afghanistan from becoming a base or becoming a safe haven for anti-India terrorist activities. Very important. So from security point of view, Afghanistan is very important. That is why India should deal with Taliban, because Taliban is controlling Afghanistan. Then he argues that India should contribute to the security of Afghanistan in a similar way it takes the security of its border seriously. Then Harshpant and other scholars like C. Rajamohan, they argue that by engaging with Taliban, India should ensure that Taliban government in Afghanistan is pro-India and not a tool in the hands of Pakistan. See, scholars argue that we must deal, we must engage, we must speak, we must negotiate with Taliban and secure guarantees from Taliban government that the Afghanistan soil will not be used to carry terrorist attacks in India, particularly in Jammu and Kashmir. This should be the first promise which India should secure from Taliban leadership, and this will happen only if we speak with Taliban. Second, we want Taliban to ensure or to give us guarantee to our development and infrastructure projects. So these two important objectives will be secured only if India speaks with Taliban. And speaking with Taliban does not necessarily mean that we are accepting their ideology. No, we are supporting their forcible takeover of Afghanistan. We are not by engagement does not mean that you agree with with their ideology. No, it's just that you are trying to secure your own interest by engaging. US did engage with Taliban. China, Russia, Iran, all of them they are speaking with Taliban. So why should India not speak? There is no point according to these scholars. Scholars also argue that it is not necessary that the old Taliban and new Taliban would be similar. No, the old Taliban was orthodox. It was rigid. It was inflexible. But the new Taliban wants international recognition, and that is why the new Taliban is flexible. Would be flexible to grant certain concessions. It would like to show the world that no, they are not they are ready to ensure the democratic process, continue the democratic process in Afghanistan. So that is why we should try to initiate dialogue with Taliban. So this is what is being suggested. Then India scholars also argue that India should abandon its masterly, inactive, or risk-averse diplomacy and should have an independent stand and policy on Afghanistan, which is not guided by, say, Pakistan's Afghanistan policy or USA's Afghanistan policy. No, we must take an independent stand, and India can play a different role, not necessarily coercive role, in Taliban control of Afghanistan. Yes, we must continue with our developmental aid, and at the same time, we must engage with Taliban. Then India supports. See, the point is that India enjoys confidence amongst the people of Afghanistan. We enjoy immense goodwill, and Taliban is also a part of people, and they also somewhat appreciate India's assistance when India sent wheat as an assistance to Afghanistan. Taliban leadership recognized it, appreciated India's efforts. So we have to understand that Taliban are in power now. So they are the most important stakeholders in Afghanistan. By not talking to Taliban, which has ruling the country, India won't be able to secure our own interest as far as our security is concerned, as far as terrorism and anti-India activities from Afghanistan is concerned, as far as Pakistan using Afghanistan as a base for fomenting terrorism in India is concerned, particularly in Jammu and Kashmir, as well as securing India's development infrastructure is concerned. Because of all these reasons, scholars argue that India must deal with Taliban. Now, see, US have fought with Taliban for 20 years. Even before that, US was fighting, and now US is engaging with Taliban. It has signed a peace deal with Taliban in February 2020, and India does not have such a bad background. So India, in fact, scholars have argued that India should have spoken with Taliban a long time back, but it is better late than never. It is still a time for India to engage with Taliban constructively, and despite the issues of international recognition. Yes, India can delay international recognition of the Taliban government, but some scholars argue that India must render official recognition of the Taliban nominated government in a gradual manner, not in one go, but in a gradual manner, considering the attitude of Taliban leadership, the gains in the developments, key developments in Afghanistan as far as Taliban initiatives are concerned, and this will benefit India instead of maintaining distance. So scholars argue that recognizing Taliban government in Afghanistan will help India's strategic interest. Then scholars argue that India's interest is to ensure that it has working relationship with Taliban government, and also wants to retain its soft power to counter Pakistan's increasing influence in Afghanistan in particular, and South Asia in general. We need to counter strategic depth, which strategic depth becomes a very important keyword for you to write in exam. Then India, like Western democracies, also has a tendency to push the democratic values at the cost of our strategic interest. Now, India must not put our strategic interest on backseat and try to push the democratic values. We have done that, and we have suffered from that, right? In fact, we should follow the same policy which we followed in case of Russia-Ukraine crisis. We have followed interest over principles. So we should not worry about undemocratic government, human rights violation. No, we must secure our strategic interest by engaging with Taliban. Then, scholars argue that now it is in India's interest to look beyond nation-building initiatives, reconstruction and redevelopment initiatives, and we must try to re-establish working relation with Taliban regime. Some argue that we must engage with Taliban from back channel, if not through official channel. Yes. Then Professor Chatterjee, one of the important scholars of international relations, he argued that while Taliban has adopted wait-and-watch policy with regard to Taliban 2.0, both Russia and China have readily expressed their willingness to engage more with Taliban. So he said that India must shed its wait-and-watch policy and engage actively with Taliban. So Professor Chatterjee suggests that India find its way forward in economist John Keynes, who says that since we cannot agree, so since we cannot change the facts, we can't change the facts. Yes, Taliban has come to power. We can't change that. So we need to reconceptualize our view on them. So we can't change facts, so we have to change our viewpoints on those facts. Same. We can't change the situation in Taliban, so we need to reconceptualize our views about Taliban, about whether we should engage with Taliban or not. So recent events, yes, recently India have taken some positive steps to start informal links with Taliban. In June 2022, India reopened its embassy in Kabul after 10 months of Taliban takeover. Yes, that's a good news. We have reopened its embassy, but this is only to secure our assets, our infrastructure projects, and also to secure our investment. Now, what can be the conclusion of this entire issue? The conclusion of this entire issue is that India should keep its engagement with Taliban. We must have incremental engagement with Taliban in order to ensure that Taliban soil, Afghanistan soil, is not used for India in anti-India activity, and also to prevent Pakistan from exploiting its strategic depth in Afghanistan. So this is how we can conclude. So rest of the issues we can deal in the next webinar, including the PYQs. With this, we come to an end to this session. Thanks a lot. All the best. See you in the next webinar, which will be held in the end of August month. See you. Thank you. All the best.